Well, like, now I'm sure for anybody that follows my Telegram channel or just happens to follow any other Scottish related Telegram channel, you're probably aware of the barrage of BAME participants or BAME politicians, whatever you will, that were putting themselves forward to be elected or selected for the regional vote for the SNP. Well, the vote closed on March the 1st, and of course, 5 individuals from this said BAME community have been selected, or they are at the very least top of the rankings for their respective constituencies. And I just find it remarkable who happens to be on this list. Now, the only person that I'm not entirely familiar with, if I'm being honest, is Rosa Sally. But of course, we have Michelle Campbell. I've made quite a few videos, including Michelle Campbell, fitting name. We also have Graham Anti-White Campbell. We have Danish Ashraf. And we have Fatima Joji. You know? And what really gets on my nerves the most about what seems to be occurring at this point in time, it's not so much that black and brown people are being selected or elected. No. It's the fact that it's the rhetoric that they come out with. It's the ideology that they are proud to represent. And it's the fact that nobody bats an eyelid. You know, the state of Scottish politics, 2021, and wow, we really are going off of the bang. But, you know, I don't think I would be doing it justice if I didn't congratulate Anassel Sarwar. When he came out with his beautiful little speech when he was first elected as the new Labour leader, and one of the things that I picked on instantaneously was this little doozy.
Today we have elected the first ever ethnic minority leader of a political party in the UK. That doesn't say something about me. That says something great about Scotland and its people. But the fight for equality is far from over. And I'll work with all our diverse communities in Scotland to rebuild the country we love.
Oh, he's gonna work with all the diverse communities in Scotland. He's the first ethnic minority to be selected as a leader for our country. The same Anassel Sarwar, who I'm sure you're all aware of, stood in the Scottish Parliament on the same day that Hamza Yusuf came out with his outburst, his anti-white tirade. Anassel Sarwar did the exact same thing. But yet, there is silence in this regard. It's seen as a good thing. It's seen as progression. It's seen as a positive thing that a man like that can be elected to lead a party in our country. Granted, a party that will never get in again, I would assume. But the reality of the matter is, that's irrelevant. The reality of the matter is that a man, a non-white man, who spends his time shitting on Scottish people, has been selected to lead a party within Scotland. And there's silence. But, you know, I digress. Congratulations on Anassel. Do your fucking worst, Paul. So, of course, if you come onto the SNP BAME Network's Facebook, which is really a barrel of laughs for the majority of the time, it says the following here from 16 hours ago. The SNP BAME Network congratulates all candidates who stood for the regional list. We wish to extend thanks in particular to the BAME and disabled candidates who have shown the diverse talent the SNP fields, bringing their unique experiences to the table. Following the results of the regional list selection, the BAME Network congratulates our members on their rankings in the top 2 for their regional lists: Michelle Campbell, Danish Ashraf, Rosa Sally, Graham Campbell and Fatima Joji. I mean, come on. Come on. Oh, the SNP. They're supposed to be nationalists. This is what's perplexing about the whole situation. So who should we start with? Well, let's start with Danish Ashraf, shall we? Now, Danish Ashraf is the brother of Janit Ashraf. And funnily enough, I made a video on this dickhead not too long ago, in fact, maybe 2-3 months ago. Scotland's biggest anti-racism step in North Lanarkshire is given the green light. And of course, 2 separate motions were aimed at eliminating racial injustice and discrimination, which were put before North Lanarkshire Council's latest full meeting. Ruling Labour councillors and members of the SNP opposition united to back a call to teach pupils the unadulterated history of our country, including the ugly truth about war, slavery and empire, with specialist training rolled out to teaching staff to deliver those lessons. Also voting to a joint bid to bring in citizens from ethnic minorities for a new working group aimed at challenging the culture of the council, and its region from street to boardroom level. And of course, the work inspired by the BLM movement will include a critical re-examination of the street names, or the area street names, statues, schools, and other buildings to establish which of these, if any, pay homage to those engaged in racial exploitation, as well as a rethink of all policy areas to root out anything that keeps ethnic minority residents at a disadvantage. The move by councillors Paul Kelly of Labour and SNP brothers Danish and Juliet Ashraf was revealed in the Sunday National, with the three saying joint working was essential to ensure the move was about more than party politics. More than party politics. I mean, it's such a redundant term at this point, considering the fact that the pair of them, Labour and the SNP, are identical. That's why the majority of Labour voters that lost faith, if you will, in Labour switched to the SNP. They didn't formulate their own party, they just switched to the SNP. They're the same fucking party. Nonetheless, goes on to say that Cumbernauld North councillor Danish Ashraf said, "To our knowledge, this is the single largest step in Scotland towards decolonising education in any council. This expansion and strengthening of our curriculum to include the reality of the British former empire, colonialism, and the many generations lost to the transatlantic slave trade is well overdue. This is a huge victory for Scotland, as we all benefit from the truth being taught, and of course in particular for descendants of former colonies and of Afro-Caribbean ancestry." You know, the article proceeds, but I won't digress too much further. But the reality is, this has been celebrated as a progressive feat that's been established, when the reality of the matter is this is your proverbial non-white, non-Scottish, anti-racist piece of shit that's been potentially elected to stand for the SNP. Just saying. Shall we move on? Who next, I wonder?
MP member living in the Lothians, you have less than 48 hours to vote on your Lothian list candidates. Our Parliament and our independence movement needs people who come from a variety of backgrounds, and there's nobody I know that's like me in there right now. I'm a Scots-Jamaican, musician, socialist, trade unionist, SNP councillor, housing campaigner, anti-racist guy. I'm just subtly trying to blend in, really, but seeing as I can't blend in, please take advantage of it. Elect me and help me reach out to those communities that so far haven't found anyone in Scotland's Parliament that they can easily relate to. Search in your emails for My Vote. Get your ballot out and put me, Graham Campbell, number 1, or as high up on the list as you can. Thank you.
So yes, of course, we had Graham Anti-White Campbell, another one that won, if you will, in this vote that took place. And he goes on to say here on Twitter that so I guess the news is out. First, I thank SNP Lothian members who gave an Afro-Caribbean Scot socialist. You're not fucking Scottish. Just putting it out there. I'm getting sick of this. This is the same man, which I'll come on to it in a second, because I love to play this video, because I really like to showcase just how insidious and malevolent, not just the SNP are, but how insidious and malevolent this cunt, pardon my French, is. I'll get to it. Where he says that he's an Afro-Caribbean Scottish socialist. Okay. Their votes. I'm deeply honoured to top the batting order for us at Holyrood. Secondly, thanks to my Edinburgh, Midlothian, East and West Lothian branch supporters, you're amazing. I will work hard to support our constituency candidates right across Lothian and to build up the voter registration in deprived areas and amongst BAME and migrant communities. Congratulations also to BAME and disabled candidates selected across Scotland. Wow, isn't that a sweet little thing to say from Graham Campbell, anti-white Graham Campbell, of course, and who is he?
We all have it, because our country has this history of white supremacy and racism and imperialism. So if we want to decode that, dismantle it, decolonize it, we have to name it and shame it and actually work out what these institutions are and how they work. Unconscious bias is part of institutionalized patterns of discrimination. We have to look at the institutions, try to dismantle them a bit and actually move on from it, because we're tackling the problem directly and naming it honestly and having an honest discussion about it. I'm confident that the future of Scotland will be a very non-racial and anti-racist country, because we are grappling with rejecting an imperialist British viewpoint of what a nation is and what it can be. We're rejecting an ethnocentric definition of what that nation is. We're setting an example of civic nationalism and inclusion, which means that we have a national identity which is going to be different. It's not going to be what it is now. We're preparing a future where people can define a Scots person non-racially. But for that to be possible, the reality of the inequality economically in the labour market, I look at my own council, we have 15% BME people in the city, but only have less than 3% in the workforce. That cannot be right. There's institutional mechanisms for stopping people getting work in my local authority. And I'm sure that's true with public bodies across this country. So the rhetoric is good. Our rhetoric is unmatched. Our laws are brilliant, but they got to match with the practical outcomes that happen in the wider society. And
I want to say, I'm proudly embraced the word woke, which has been a phrase used by many of those online and sometimes in person to argue that equalities and arguing for it is some kind of a diversion from the struggle for independence. Well, let me tell you something. The majority of people in Scotland are women, disabled people, LGBTQI, including trans, and they are younger, they are older, and they are BAME. That is the majority. If we want to win independence, we have to win a majority. Black Lives Matter was started by black LGBT women. The Stonewall riots, which gave rise to the gay liberation movement, was started by black drag queens who have been oppressed.
I need to stop you because the time is up.
Either you're for the oppressed or you're...
Sorry to exclude, but I'm afraid your time is up.
Either you're for the oppressed or you're against them. Yeah.
I joined the SNP in 2016 after the Brexit referendum. I've always supported independence for 25 years, and I've voted SNP in recent years, so it seemed the logical next step to finally actually join. And I think it's been important to join the BAME network as part of it, because I bring with me the politics of my community, the struggle for rights and representation, the struggle against racism, and the need for a place where we can unite to fight racism of all descriptions, whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or just plain old-fashioned anti-black racism. It's all racism, and we've got to be there fighting against all of it together. That's that black people are properly represented in this country. It's really important that we take our place. We take up space politically.
I led Africans for an Independent Scotland in 2014, and I'm ready to do it again, soon. We all know we have to convince more people to vote yes. There are tens of thousands of African Scots right now, but they see nobody that looks
I'm sorry. This is what's really, what annoys me about this man in particular. First and foremost, with the accent he's got, he was clearly raised in England, but, it's the fact he's not Scottish. He's not fucking Scottish. Yet, it was bad enough when he was given a place in the SNP to stand on a podium and talk about, or at a podium and talk about, we want to live in a non-racial country. It was bad enough when the likes of this wanker, or people like him, were able to spout off rhetoric that is detrimental to the indigenous Scottish people of these fucking islands, by the way. But now that he's been selected to potentially represent the SNP politically, he's a councillor, but it's going a step further now. The fact that people like this, the fact that this cancerous ideology is sweeping into the mainstream and unbeknownst to the masses, this is a problem. It's a fucking problem. These people have absolutely no place in politics. I'm all for free speech. I'm all for live and let live. I'm one of those type of guys. But the difference is, people like him, the mainstream media, going hand in hand, interlinking with the government itself, shut down opinions like mine, shut down voices like mine on the regular, and they all oppose voices like mine. under the guise of fighting for racial justice, under the guise of being anti-racist, under the guise of striving for a progressive, better future. But the reality of the matter is that every single thing people like this piece of shit has come away with is detrimental to the very well-being, the very existence of our future generations. Call me melodramatic, call me a fantasist, all you want, but just look at what's happening here. Look what's happening. This is ridiculous that people like this are able to stand in our elections, run their mouths off, and there's no repercussions. If I was to stand there or sit there with my fucking daft wee dreadlocks on and talk about white people, or Scottish people in particular, I'm standing to represent white people. I'm standing there to represent the Scottish people. What do you think would happen to me? I'd be called all the names under the sun, but this is the two-tier system that we in Scotland, as well as everywhere else, seem to be living under. And this is what's infuriated me about this whole thing. These people are allowed to represent their own. They're allowed to speak on behalf of their own. They're allowed to play the race card to benefit their own. They're allowed to tune into in-group preference and group identity politics to benefit themselves, whereas we're not. And at the same time, they're dismantling who we are. They're simultaneously claiming that anybody can be Scottish, like this cunt said there. Pardon my French again. I'm sorry for this swearing, but I can't stand these fucking people. I can't stand them. Anybody can be Scottish. So what does Scottish mean, essentially? Well, you heard it from the horse's mouth in this instance, where he said that the future of Scotland, well, he wants it to be non-racial. So anyone can move to Scotland and be Scottish, you know. You can identify a Scottish person non-racially, but you can't do that because we're an ethnic group. So how are you meant to do that? A black guy with a Jamaican fucking hat on his head and stupid glasses and a shit beard is not Scottish, irrespective of whether or not he proclaims to be. I'm just saying. It's a double standard.
Like them in our parliament. But me in our parliament.
Sorry.
Nobody that looks like them in our parliament right now, but they see nobody that looks like them in our parliament.
See, this is what I'm saying. So, you hear it time and time again. I've made multiple videos on this subject matter, but these people continuously do this. They continuously fucking do it, and it really annoys me. Because, on the one hand, we are taught to believe, oh, we're all one, diversity is our greatest strength, progression, all that bollocks. We're all taught to not see race. We're all taught to see ourselves as individuals. But then we have people like this that exploit the system that has been put in place specifically to benefit them, and they're allowed to stand there and complain that the parliament is too white. It doesn't matter if it's Hamza Yusuf. It doesn't matter if it's Anas Sarwar. It doesn't matter if this is wanker. The reality of the matter is, this is a common theme from these people. There's no one that looks like us in there. So what? So what? Because if there's a white individual in that parliament that is passing or suggesting policies that benefit your community, then surely that should not matter. But the reality is, that's not what it's about. It's a fucking power shift. It's a power grab, which will turn into a power shift. You know, you hear it all the time. Another example I'll give you is when they talk about the fact that, oh, well, white employees never hire blacks. That's why we need more black employers, etc. What do you think? Take that train of thought. Take that logic to its conclusion. What would that mean then? So we shoehorn in black employers. By their logic, whites only hire whites, which they don't, by the way. It's a meritocracy. You'd never think it, but it is. But what would happen then? We'd have blacks hiring blacks. It's the same thing here. They don't see themselves. It doesn't matter what policy you pass. It's the fact they can't see themselves. But they can openly say this. And this is my fucking problem with all of them. I fucking hate these people. I hate them. I hate their rhetoric, I hate their ideology, and I hate the fact that they're given a platform to denigrate our country, denigrate my people, to benefit their own. And if I say anything, I am on thin ice.
But me topping the Lothians list for the SNP will give us a much stronger platform to engage with them and with many other communities across Scotland who would benefit from independence but are waiting to be convinced. Now, selecting me will give them the confidence that the independence movement is about them too.
Oh, okay. So I get it now. So because he's black people might vote for independence because he's black. You know, I mean, this is what I'm talking about, man. So up next, this video's getting a bit too long. I don't want to sit here all day, but who else do we have? Well, of course, we have Rosa Sally, who's pictured here, and I love this little picture here. Migration is not a crime. Of course you'd say that, you know. Migrants and refugees, they come to our country, then they start dictating policies that they know damn well will benefit their own. It's a common theme. But I love this though, if we go back to the BAME Network's Facebook, because it kind of intertwines with this article. It says here, you know, when they're congratulating all these BAMEs, etc. Our party is creating a new precedent of equity in the political field. This is a sign of overdue progress. You know, there's equity they speak about. It's not equality, equity, bear in mind. And I love this bit too where it says, representative of Scottish society or Scotland society. Both votes SNP to elect these amazing, talented candidates into our Scottish Parliament, transforming it into one that is more representative of Scottish society. Right, the last census was 96% white. They keep fucking doing this. Just because Glasgow is near enough brown at this point, the rest of Scotland is not. I'm fucking sick of it. Nonetheless, I'm digressing. The point I'm saying is they brag about, oh, this is progress, you know, this is setting a precedent of equity. You know, this equity that they talk about, right, where it says down here, the National Executive Committee had voted by the casting vote of its chair to bring in the policy which saw 8 regions divided so that 4 had disabled candidates top of the list and the other 4 had BAME candidates. Top lawyer Jonathan Mitchell, QC, warned the NEC that the policy was legally dubious and open to challenge in the courts. It remains to be seen if any candidate will challenge the listings. On each of the lists released yesterday, whichever candidate identifying as BAME or disabled and who got the most votes, no matter where they were on the list, was automatically moved to the top. Oh, it's equality. Yeah, that's what it fucking is. Yeah, bragging about it. But, aye.
Hi, my name is Rosa Sally. I came to the great city of Glasgow as a refugee and consider Scotland my home. I joined the SNP to fight for independence and to help a party that believes in doing things differently than Westminster, respecting equality and diversity. I was involved in creating the BME group so we continue our proud tradition as an inclusive party that gives opportunity to all, no matter of their backgrounds. It has been a year full of significant events that are particularly important to the BME individuals. The COVID pandemic, which disproportionately affects people from ethnic minority backgrounds, as well as Black Lives Matter movement in the wake of George Floyd murder.
This is all they do. This is all they do. They're an embarrassment. They're a fucking embarrassment. All they do is talk about themselves, and all they do is bring up Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. I mean, this is who your party's supposed to be, Scotland. This is the SNP in a nutshell.
Which has called for a change of systematic racism.
Oh, the same systematic racism that's allowed you to stand for the SNP. The same systematic racism that's allowed you to be a grassroots activist for human rights and pro-migration, etc. for years now. The same systematic racism that allowed her to stand to try and be a councillor not that too long ago in 2018, 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no! But it's systematic racism because fentanyl Floyd fucking overdosed. I'm sick of it. And I mean, as I say, my problem with these people is not so much the fact that they're brown or black. My fucking problem with these people is the fact that they're not Scottish and they're trying to change the way that Scotland operates, and they've been given the ability to do so. Even before they stood for the regional vote lists, they were given the ability to do so because the SNP and the Scottish Government have gifted these people the ability to vote and stand in our elections, despite not being Scottish. I mean, I'd love, as I keep saying, it's this two-tier system. If a Scottish individual stood there on camera and advocated for his people or her people, meaning Scottish people, wish to stand for election, wish to advocate for the rights of the Scottish people, collectivise them and put them into a group in and of themselves, instead of, like they do when they say the BAMEs all the time, well, let's just say the Scots, the proper Scots. They'd be far right, they'd be a neo-Nazi, they'd be a bigot, they'd be xenophobic, and quite frankly, they'd probably be fucking arrested. But it's fine for them, because they're hiding under the mirage of oppression. Because they're, as you quite clearly hear from some of the pish they come away with, they proclaim to be socialists, you know.
COVID and Black Lives Matter, and indeed our own selection process show we still have work to do on the path to a truly inclusive society. I do believe, however, that the work of the BME group has and will continue to do with the support of the whole party to reach the inclusive and equality we all strive for.
And of course we have Michelle Campbell, an honourable mention, but the video is now nearing half an hour long, so I will skip her for this video and I'll go on to Fatima Joji.
If we look at our black minority ethnic population, for instance, we've got 1% who are black, and then if we include the Asian and minority ethnic, it's about 5%. It might seem small, but if we look at 5% of 5.5 million, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people. So that's hundreds and thousands of people that you're ignoring.
You're ignoring them, by the way, because there's nobody in that parliament that looks like them. That's how they're being ignored, because that's the premise of the video that I'm playing right now. That's what they're talking about, the lack of representation. But again, if we're taught that we're all one, this shouldn't matter. But again, they're getting selected. They're allowed to stand on platforms to advocate for their own, but we're not allowed the same. This is my point. I'm getting sick of this shit. I really am. I am so beyond sick of their attitude. Here we go.
So I think we need to look at our Scottish history and...
Our Scottish history. Our fucking Scottish history. Oh my god.
Our... how our society is rooted in systemic racism and oppression and unconscious bias.
This is what you're voting for, folks.
To the point that we don't even realise that we're doing it. When we're talking about Holyrood, we really need to look at the political parties that claim that they're progressive, that they're inclusive, and yet I'm sure a lot of them do have a lot of interest from black minority ethnic candidates, but you need the diverse experience, the lived experiences, if you want to make a society that you claim is representative and progressive. And when many people are held back, it's going to affect people who claim they're not.
I think to...
Just the state of Scottish politics, folks. Have a good night.